Okay, we are here on the European NLP Congress, and I'm very happy to have some questions for Dr. Richard Bandler. And the first question I have is, what is the difference between the NLP from the 80s and the NLP we have now in 2012? Can you say something about how NLP developed from 80s to 2012?
Probably better than anybody, I would think. In the 80s, we were just getting started. Most of what we did modeled the success of other people, and we were just building the foundation. Everything we do now is easier, better, faster, quicker. That since we introduced the model, or really since I introduced the model of submodalities, there are just many things we could do. We focused more on modeling success and less on remedial change than we used to. And you know, when I started back in 1970, we set out to model the success of people that were doing remedial work. That is, getting people over problems, instead of modeling the success of the best athletes, the best business people, the best spellers, painters, artists. And by changing the focus on things and looking at what's more universal about them, the models that have been created since the 80s are just hands down better. Since the book Using Your Brain for Change was released, NLP has turned upside down, and it hasn't stopped, focusing on the anemic nervous system and how neurological change is produced by altering your consciousness, being able to rotate feelings and to switch the direction of them. And all of these things which constitute new parts of NLP over the years, which are reflected in most of the books that I put out in the past 5 years or so. We've taken really a new direction, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, NLP is just coming into its own. And so people who stopped learning things in the 80s are, as I like to say, there are people stuck at various levels of my development. Don't be one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how can we use NLP in education? How can we use NLP for...
Well, NLP is education. It's not that we use it in education. In the school systems, the trouble is the school systems are in most countries, they're trying to homogenize learning. They want all third grade classes to be identical every day. And you don't make people smarter by homogenizing things. What we need to do is to model the best learners and teach the people who aren't doing well to do it the way they do it. And I don't know if that's going to happen in school systems. My thrust is going to animation. And I want to animate these things. Kate Benson is doing a lot of work with the educational systems. I look at the school systems as a broken system. And if we can create something competitive outside of them, I think the school systems will then turn around and change themselves. To try to go in and tell them the right way to do things is the wrong way to do it. We have a lot of teachers that have come and studied with us that go back and do good work, but they're struggling because of the system itself. Measure success. They're giving them phonetic spellers, and they're teaching kids to spell other than phonetically. They're trying to overcome something which systematically is wrong to start with. We can't even spell phonetics phonetically. It's a ludicrous system. And deciding that one word is a fourth grade word and one word is a third grade word is you know, making up a bunch of stuff and then defending it. I mean, if we can create cartoons that teach people, I think Sesame Street was a great thing. You know, it filled the gap for, you know, 0 to 5 and got people to count and spell, you know, much more effectively than they ever did in school. Mm-hmm. But, you know, unfortunately, Sesame Seeds dropped. And we have to get it so that it goes all the way up to advanced chemistry, that we start teaching people through entertainment how to become smart, how to become artistic, how to play music. And with the advent of the web and YouTube and all of these things, it opens up a broad thing. And I'd like to see this whole field jump into this and start installing great strategies in kids to be artists and writers and musicians and mathematicians. And all of these things, it could be done in cartoons and in YouTube and everywhere else. And that's going to force the educational system to start adopting things that work better. Because, you know, if kids are learning more outside of school than they are in school, the schools will have to adapt. There was a time, I remember, when schools were very hesitant about having any kind of computerized stuff in it. When, you know, the truth is in 20 years, you know, 90% of the population was going to need that in order to be able to function in society. But I can remember, you know, principals at schools and teachers at schools telling me, well, if kids use computers, they'll never learn to really do it themselves. and that, computers have no place in the school system. It's just another way of watching television all day. And, eventually they had to adopt. And most of the colleges that taught things about computers were private industry things, Conby College and computer school. And eventually the colleges had to put that stuff in and teach people how computers worked and how to use software and how to adopt software. There was a point at which Harvard went paperless. Everybody had to have the same computer and turn their work in on the same disks and email stuff to your professors. And, leading universities should be doing things, and schools should be looking at what leading universities are doing and preparing people to live that way so that they can live in the world of the future, not the world of the past.
Okay. So the trend state where many people are going into, and in our trainings all the time for learning things, what is the difference between that trend state and a trend state stage hypnotist used to make people do silly things?
Well, stage hypnotists are in the entertainment business. They're taking a large number of people and finding the ones that are the most obedient, giving people that 5 minutes of fame so that they can overcome their inhibitions and do something silly on stage. But that's what a stage hypnotist does. He's there to entertain people. He's not there to make them smarter. He's not there to teach people how to live better and how to be wiser and how to be better to their families. And when you say the trance state, there are myriads of altered states that are used. State-conditioned learning, the way in which you multiply and the way in which you do public speaking, all of these are different altered states. Doing art, there are thousands of altered states. And now that we can measure these through brain scans and mind mirrors and all these wonderful devices that allow us to look into the brain and find out what's happening, have given us knowledge that these states are measurable and repeatable and learnable. And my work is about teaching people to go into the right state and use the right strategy to accomplish tasks. That, when I do a demonstration, I may do things like a stage hypnotist does, but I do it different. I'm putting people into trance states so that they become a better person. So I can take a musician and I can teach him perfect pitch. He already knows all the notes, he just doesn't know how to tell them apart, because he doesn't have a machine in his head that will clarify that. And by putting new machines in people's heads, because that's what we do, we build representations in our heads that allow us to do things, we make people so that they function better. And the job of a mentalist or a hypnotist is to make themselves famous by entertaining people. And my job is to get people to do the best that they can in life and to function then. I'm an educator, they're an entertainer.
Okay. Okay, the last question I have is, what is the biggest transformation a human being can make?
That's easy. Birth.
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 Okay, and after birth?
They weren't, and now they are. I can't think of anything bigger than that.
Okay.
Second one, death. That's pretty much ends everything.
Yeah.
Problems start, problems are over. Everything in between, I don't think that there is a biggest transformation. It's a question of how you transform yourself. Because constantly you're deciding how to live, what to do, who to be with, and although it may not always feel that way, you're constantly making choices about what you're going to do, what you're going to repeat. And every time you have the same bad feeling, it may not feel like you're deciding, but you are. And I think the biggest transformation in the people I work with is when they discover that they can change these things, that it's not really out of their control. The first time they do something they never thought they could do. When I do the phobia day in front of 700 people, and somebody who can't even think about a spider is holding one in their hand, 20 minutes later, that it's not important that they hold a spider. What's important is they now know everything they thought they couldn't do, they can. And as long as they keep going and trying things that they thought were impossible and thinking about it differently, change the way you think, changes the way you feel, it changes what you can do. It's a pretty simple formula in the end.
Okay.
Remember it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
And thank you for watching.